Hello and welcome back to Crafted by Corie. If you're new, I'm Corie. Welcome to my channel. If you are returning, thank you so much for being here. As always, you are amazing. I have some more new fall DIYs for you, so let's go ahead and get right on into the crafting. DIY number 1. All right, this is from the Dollar Tree. It's something I've had in my stash for a while. And on one side, obviously, it is an apple, and it's actually pretty cute. But I'm going to work with the other side, and I'm going to preserve the original side, so it'll be a double-sided sign. So if I get bored with it, I could flip it over. But I think that the apple also looks like a pumpkin. So I'm going to be using my pumpkin chalk paint. I'm going to be giving it a couple of coats just to make sure that it's got good coverage. And I'm going to do pretty much everything but the stem. With the stem, I did go up a little bit just so that I'll have a way to make sure that the paint merges. Is that the right word? I don't know. There are no gaps between the colors. But I'm just using my heat gun in between coats just to help the drying time along. So once I had that completely dry, I'm applying my second coat, and then I will work on the rest of it. I'm just trying to make sure my brush strokes go in the direction that enhances the look, so to speak. So now this is Fern chalk paint by Waverly that I'm using here, and I'm just going to work my way down and then kind of spike it out. I don't know what the right word is for it, but you can see how I'm just trying to make my little pumpkin stem look like it does when it's on an actual pumpkin. And then I also went ahead and painted that metal leaf with the green color, that fern color, so that it was also part of this piece. And now I've got my pencil. I was a little bit hesitant to draw right on here right from the start because I was afraid I was going to mess it up. So I grabbed another piece of parchment paper, and I'm just going to, this is, you know, the trial version, so to speak. I'm just going to draw the lines where I think that I would want them and just see if it actually does look like a pumpkin shape by the time I'm done with it. That way I can make any necessary adjustments before I commit to putting it on the orange paint that I just put down on this piece, right? Of course, I could always paint over it if I made some sort of mistake, but I would rather do it this way and avoid having to repaint. So that was what I did, and I was pretty confident with how it looked. So I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing. I've got my little parchment piece there with my original pencil markings that I'm using kind of as a visual guide. If you are more comfortable putting down something like graphite paper and tracing over your lines once you have them set, you could certainly do that as well, but I felt pretty comfortable once I did that first iteration that I was going to be able to just handle it. So now I have my Java chalk paint, and I am coming in with a dry brush. Well, I'm using the dry brush technique, but it's a chip brush. So just trying to add a little bit of texture and depth by using this chocolate brown kind of tone of paint. Because if you think about a pumpkin stem, they aren't just bright green usually. Usually they're, and especially once they've been picked for a few days, they start turning brown. But anyway, that was the thought behind what I'm doing here. And then I went ahead and added some of that Java chalk paint to the leaf as well. This leaf does have a little bit of I don't want to say texture. It's not texture, but it's metal. So it's stamped in such a way that it has some debossing where the little parts of the leaf form. So I just kind of focused on that. Now I'm going to use that same chalk paint, the Java chalk paint, along those lines that I created with my pencil earlier. My thought was to try and make the lines of the pumpkin that you normally see, but in such a way that it looks more like shadow and shading. I'm not sure how successful I was with that. I'm not done with it when I put these lines down like this, but yeah, I mean, obviously it's very dark right now. So once I had all my um, paint on, I went ahead and grabbed baby wipe, and I'm going to go back over it. And it took a few times because the paint had started to dry, because I was using a dry brush method, so it does dry rather quickly. But I found that if I went over it a few times, it started to help smudge the paint and lighten that up. If I had to do it again, I might try to just apply it with a baby wipe, but I wouldn't have as much control as the paintbrush. So I don't know that that would actually be a really great idea. Something that I will consider, but not sure. So I just continue to go back and forth over this until I got the paint knocked down a little bit and to my liking. And once I had that all done, I had the inclination of putting something on the pumpkin, some sort of a word. I thought about the word boo. But then in my stash, I had these cute little metal signs, also from the Dollar Tree. So I was trying to decide between the one that said home, that was the galvanized metal, or this one that says welcome, that is obviously a black metal, black finished metal. It had a protective plastic seal on it, so I just pulled that off. And ultimately, I did decide to go with the black one. I thought it looked nice with the pumpkin. It looks a little bit dark to me here on camera now, but in person, I liked it better. I don't know. You'll have to let me know which one you would have gone with, but just using some hot glue at the top and bottom to adhere it to the pumpkin. And I'm not pressing it down real hard. I'm just kind of tapping it to make sure that it's going to adhere. And that's that. So I felt like it needed a little bit something more, but for right now, I am going to just reattach the same hanger that I had taken off of it. I'm not going to have it go across the design the way that it did. It kind of made a big loop when, I don't know if you noticed when I took it off, but I'm opting to just have it knotted at each hole. So a little bit different than the way that it came, but I kind of like this better, and I think it's a cleaner look. So once I had those knots in, I just trimmed off the excess, and then I was trying to figure out what to do to enhance the stem. I thought about a bow, but then I decided, you know what, I'm going to take this additional little piece of twine that was the hanger for the welcome sign, and I'm going to use this around the little leaf stem. So I had folded it in half, and now I'm going to just tie it in a knot around there, and then I'll cut the one loop, because from folding it in half there's a loop there, so just cut that. And then I just kind of pulled the pieces apart a little bit, just a little bit of a messy kind of knotted thing, but let me know what you think. DIY number 2 for this project. These are styrofoam balls that I'd gotten from the Hobby Lobby when they were having a big sale after Christmas. I think it was like 60% off. And I was just showing you that my moss, that's also from the Hobby Lobby, was $7.99. Which might sound like a lot, but I have used this for so many different projects. I mean, it's lasted a long time. There's a lot of moss in there. So I think it might actually be a better deal than the Dollar Tree. Now I've got my fern chalk paint, and as you saw, I kind of put my little styrofoam balls on skewers to help me hold this. I figured I would paint it first, just so that if there are any gaps, they will not be visible. I'm going to coat my little balls with my, I keep wanting to call this fern, I don't know why, but moss, with my moss. So I'm just applying hot glue and then some of the moss and then trimming it off. I ultimately decided it would be better to just cut this up and have smaller bits to attach. So that was what I did. And I just worked in sections because I didn't want the hot glue to, first of all, cool too quickly, but also I didn't want it to be dripping and getting all over everything and just making even more of a mess than I knew I was going to be making with this. This is not a difficult project. It just takes a little bit of time, and you want to be careful that you are not putting the moss on in too thin of a layer, because the glue will go right through there and will burn you. So please be very, very careful. Use more moss than what you think you need, because you'll just be able to knock off the excess. In fact, that was part of my process. So I would apply it thickly. Whatever the glue was able to reach, it would grab hold of, and then the excess I was able to just brush off. So here I'm just applying more glue and kind of rolling it in those little bits of moss that I've got there on my tabletop. And then I did go through and trim it. So here I'm kind of knocking off the excess, and I did use my scissors to kind of give it a haircut. So, and I just continued this process until I felt like I had covered up all of the little bald spots, because I'm not applying glue to every single part of the surface at one time. So it is going to take some going back and filling in some of the gaps. That's why I was saying it's not a hard project, but it does take some patience and a little bit of time. So as long as you don't mind spending the time on it, you're going to have some really cute little moss balls when you're done with the whole project. But this is essentially all that I did. Now, I did the same thing for the second ball, but for the third one, I decided, you know what? This moss is so tightly woven together in this bag. I did go ahead and apply glue all over. I figured I would wrap this big piece of moss around it and see if this worked better. I'd say it's about 6 1/2 dozen of the other. I don't know that it saved me any time. It was kind of satisfying to have the whole thing covered like that right away, but there were still some gaps. I did have to go in and give it a haircut, more so than when I did it the other way, because you can kind of see when I pull that up, there was a whole big mess of moss sticking up. I think it also takes more moss to do it this way. Yeah, so 6 1/2 dozen, but you can see I'm giving it a severe haircut now, right? So clearly it was a lot more moss on there than what I had used on the others. Was it more effective to do it this way? Maybe, but it was really hard to tell. So you could do it whichever way you're more comfortable. But I think these came out really, really nice, and I hope that you like them too. DIY number 3. Okay, I have a grapevine wreath that I had also gotten at the Hobby Lobby a long time ago. This has been in my stash for probably at least a couple of years. It was $3.99. It might have been on sale, but I honestly don't know. But still, $3.99 is not bad. And then I have all of my florals here. These I know were on sale when I got them from the Hobby Lobby. They had originally each been $10.99 a piece. $10.99, and they were 90% off when I got them. So $1.10 for each of these is not bad at all. These are wonderful quality. I absolutely love the flower picks from the Hobby Lobby, and you can't beat it when you can get them on sale like that. I was really lucky when I got them at 90% off. I think I even did a haul video on everything that I'd gotten that day, but I think it was like last year. Might have been in the springtime. I can't remember. It was definitely off season. But I'm just going to cut all of these apart the way that I normally do. If you followed me for any length of time, you know it's very rare that I leave a pick whole. So I am cutting these down, or I had cut these down, and now I'm just tucking them in. Now you can go back and add hot glue once you're satisfied with what you've got going on. I don't always do that, depending on how secure my pieces are with the grapevine. The grapevine wreaths are made in such a way that when you tuck these in, they're usually pretty secure. Not always, but they're usually in there pretty snugly. And so I was feeling relatively confident that I didn't need to add additional glue for this. If you're going to be putting it outside, you definitely would want it to be covered and sheltered from the weather. But outside, if it's going to be met with wind, that might be a reason that you would want to make sure you use hot glue. So I'm just going to continue to go back and forth and tucking in my various flowers in a way that looks pretty to my eye. I love when they have the wire in them because then you can really manipulate the direction in which they're going. And I tend to be all about symmetry. I've talked about that in other past videos. So whatever I do at the top, I tend to want to do at the bottom, and I kind of keep it relatively uniform. It's just what makes my eyes happy, makes my heart happy. So if you prefer things that are asymmetrical, be my guest. You do what works for you. You can use whatever color scheme works for you. This is something that can be done all year round with different types of florals. It doesn't have to be just saved for the fall. I've done some beautiful spring and summer wreaths using the grapevine wreaths. I'm trying to think if I've done, I think I've actually used grapevine for wintertime also. There was this really pretty splayed grapevine wreath. I don't know how else to describe it. It kind of had sprays going off of it that I think I might have made one, the actual wreath. And I had done it with winter, like icy picks and things. And I'd put, I think, a cardinal on it. I don't know. I liked it. I thought it was really cool. And I actually ended up selling that one. But I don't sell a lot of my stuff. I mainly give it away and donate it. Just because I haven't had a lot of extra time to manage the Etsy shop and all of that. So at any rate, I continued to build this out until I had it the way that I wanted it, tucking in some yellow there. And then I'm going to be ready to create a bow where everything is coming together there on the left. Oh, not quite. I decided that I needed something that was a little shorter. All of those other picks that I'd been using were relatively long. So these little mini, I think they're mini mums, are from the Dollar Tree. And they're a little bit darker, so I wanted to make sure I was sticking them in, tucking them in throughout the design so that it wasn't weird just having them there at the base near where I was going to be making that bow. All right, so now I'm ready to make the bow, and I pulled out one of my Kirkland ribbons. I'd actually pulled out a couple of different kinds, but the ones that I was hoping to use were single-sided, and I knew with the type of bow that I wanted to make, I needed a double-sided ribbon. This one's not technically double-sided. Here, I'm cleaning up my mess here a little bit. I love this little mini vacuum cleaner. It's awesome. But this one's not technically double-sided, but you can't tell that it isn't double-sided. It's the back side of it is enough like the front side that you really can't tell a difference unless I told you that it's different and you went looking for it. All right, so I'm just doing back and forth with the ribbon. I eyeballed it. I didn't measure it. If I had to guess, I would say that the loops are 3.5 to 4 inches on either side. And I made sure that I had 6 loops on each side. And once I got to that point, I went ahead and trimmed off my ribbon. And then I'm going to attach it in the middle with a chenille stem. I just ran to my stash real quick and grabbed one that was gold, as close to a gold as I could get to the color of the ribbon so that it would be camouflaged as best as I could. And then I went ahead and flipped up the ribbon by pulling the little loops opposite from each other. So I alternated right and left and just continued to fluff it up until I had it the way that I wanted it. Then in the process, I also dovetailed the little ends, the little tails there. Now you could also create longer tails. I opted not to for this wreath, but there's no reason why you couldn't. And now I'm also using that chenille stem to tuck this through the grapevine wreath, one of the twigs that was wrapping all around it to try and kind of keep it together. And I twisted that off. So again, I didn't use any glue in this piece. You certainly can. I opted not to for this piece. This is something that will stay and live indoors, so it's not at risk of getting blown to bits. But let me know what you think of this one. DIY number 4. This is going to be super easy, guys. This is a bowl from the Dollar Tree. It's kind of an oval shape, and that is a soap dish. And I have been meaning to do this. It's probably been in my stash for 2 years. I had noticed that the soap dish was the same shape and approximate size as the base of the bowl, so I'm going to put a little pedestal on my bowl. Now, my idea was to drop some hot glue just inside the edge of the soap dish so that it will drop down onto the bowl without having glue exposed on the outside. Now, my glue gun wasn't quite fully heated up, and I didn't move quite fast enough either, so the glue was too cool to kind of drop the way I needed it to. So I thought, oh, you know what? I'll use my heat gun and I will, heat up the glue so it will drop and seal this. Well, I was a little worried that the heat might be too much for the bowl, but then I thought, oh, you know what? I think it'll probably be okay. Yeah, no, it wasn't. I found that it did warp the bowl. Fortunately, I had a second one in my stash, so I was able to start over. This time I worked a little bit more quickly, added some extra glue there just to make sure that I was going to have enough, and I just put a really generous coat right over top of the coat of glue that was there. Figured that it might melt it and create even more glue, and then went ahead and set it down on the base of my bowl. This time it worked the way that I had intended it to the first time. So it was really just a matter of waiting for it to cool. And I thought that this was such a cute shape. I'm not going to be leaving it these colors, although you certainly could. I'm actually going to be painting it with a gold metallic spray paint. This is the one, metallic Rust-Oleum. Took it out to the garage, and let me know what you think. Okay, everybody, that's it for today. If you enjoyed the project, remember to please give me a big thumbs up, leave me a comment, let me know which one was your favorite. And until the next time, be well, be kind, and make it a great day. Thank you so much for watching and take good care. Bye.